Mark stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. New apartment, new life. He ran a hand through his hair. Something felt off. He couldn't put his finger on it. The apartment was spacious, airy, almost too airy, like a held breath. He'd moved in just a week ago, a whirlwind of packing boxes and takeout containers. The previous tenant had left abruptly, leaving the place practically furnished. A steal, the landlord had said. Now, doubt gnawed at him. The air felt heavy, despite the open windows. A faint metallic scent lingered. He'd initially dismissed it as city smells. Now, he wasn't so sure. A floorboard creaked outside the bathroom door. Mark froze, heart pounding. He was being paranoid. Just an old building settling, right? He tried to convince himself. Jennifer was radiant. Her laughter filled the small apartment, momentarily chasing away the shadows that seemed to cling to the corners. Mark found himself relaxing, drawn to her easy charm. They'd met online, their conversations flowing effortlessly. Tonight was their first date. He'd cooked a simple pasta dish. She'd brought wine, a rich red that stained the glass. "This is really good," she complimented, twirling a forkful of pasta. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "You're quite the chef, Mark." He blushed, pleased. "It's nothing special," he mumbled, suddenly self-conscious. She had that effect on him, making him feel like he was back in high school, all awkward limbs and stammering words. As the evening progressed, the strange feeling returned. A low hum seemed to vibrate beneath the floorboards, almost imperceptible, but there. Mark tried to ignore it, focus on Jennifer's animated stories. He caught a whiff of that metallic scent again, stronger this time, like old pennies and something else, something he couldn't quite place. It made his stomach churn. "Are you all right?" Jennifer asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "You seem distracted." He forced a smile. "Just tired, I think. Long week." He didn't want to appear rude, yet a primal instinct whispered at the edge of his awareness. Something was wrong, very wrong. The hum intensified, resonating through the room. He could swear the air had grown colder. His gaze darted around the room, searching for the source of his unease. The kiss was electric. Jennifer tasted of red wine and something sweet like honeysuckle. Mark lost himself in the sensation, his earlier apprehension momentarily forgotten. Her touch was fire, sending shivers down his spine. She pulled him closer, her body pressed against his. He could feel the heat of her, the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. He led her to the bedroom, his steps hesitant. The air grew heavy, the metallic scent overpowering. He tried to shake off the feeling of dread that had settled over him. Jennifer's eyes glinted in the dim light. "What's wrong?" she whispered, her voice husky. He opened his mouth to answer, but the words caught in his throat. Something wasn't right. Section 5. A ghastly discovery. His gaze fell on the far wall of the bedroom. A section seemed darker than the rest, the wallpaper subtly off-kilter. He hadn't noticed it before, or maybe he had, and his mind had chosen to ignore it. "One moment," he mumbled, excusing himself. He crossed the room, drawn to the anomaly. His hand reached out, tracing the outline of the discoloured wallpaper. It felt strangely cold beneath his fingertips. He pressed against it, his heart pounding in his chest. To his surprise, the wall yielded slightly. He pushed harder, and a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a hidden doorway. A wave of nausea washed over him. The metallic scent was overpowering now, thick and cloying. He peered into the darkness, his blood turning to ice. Section 6. Paralyzing fear. Two eyes, glowing with an eerie green light, stared back at him from the darkness, piercing through the void like twin beacons of dread. A low growl emanated from the opening, sending chills down his spine. Jennifer, he thought, but it couldn't be. Her face, once so alluring and familiar, was now twisted into a grotesque snarl, a mask of pure horror. Her teeth, perfectly white just moments ago, were now elongated, sharp as shards of glass, glinting menacingly in the dim light. Saliva dripped from her jaw, sizzling on the wooden floor with an eerie hiss, adding to the surreal terror of the moment. Mark stumbled back, his mind reeling in disbelief. This couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare, a twisted figment of his imagination. He had to wake up, he told himself, desperately trying to escape the clutches of this living nightmare. But the stench of decay that now permeated the air was all too real, assaulting his senses with its putrid intensity. "Jennifer," he croaked, his voice barely a whisper, trembling with fear and confusion. She cocked her head, the green glow in her eyes intensifying, burning brighter with an unnatural light. A low guttural growl rumbled in her chest, reverberating through the room like a death knell. He knew with chilling certainty that she was no longer the woman he thought he knew. She had transformed into something monstrous, something beyond his worst nightmares. Section 7. Trapped. Panic seized him. He spun around, searching for an escape, but the hidden doorway had slammed shut, plunging the room into darkness. He fumbled for the light switch, his heart hammering against his ribs. The lights flickered, then died completely. He cursed, plunging the room into absolute darkness. He could hear her moving now closer, her breathing ragged and uneven. He backed away, stumbling over something soft and yielding. He cried out, his hand connecting with something cold and clammy. He recoiled in horror, scrambling away on his hands and knees. A low chuckle echoed in the darkness. It was a sound devoid of humanity, filled with a chilling amusement. He was trapped, like a rat in a cage with a predator toying with its prey. Section 8. A gruesome ritual. A faint light flickered to life, emanating from the center of the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He watched in terror as Jennifer, if he could even call her that anymore, lit a series of candles arranged meticulously in a circle on the floor. Each candle seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Her movements were fluid, almost serpentine, as she moved around the circle, her body swaying in a hypnotic rhythm. She chanted in a language he didn't understand, her voice a low, guttural rasp that sent shivers down his spine. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and foreboding. The air crackled with energy, the metallic scent almost unbearable, filling his nostrils and making it hard to breathe. She picked up a long, curved knife from the floor, the blade glinting ominously in the candlelight, reflecting the flickering flames. Her eyes, still glowing with that unearthly green light, met his, piercing through the darkness. A cold, predatory smile spread across her face, a smile that promised nothing but pain and suffering. "Don't worry, darling," she purred, her voice a grotesque parody of its former sweetness, dripping with malice. "It will all be over soon," she whispered, her words a sinister promise that chilled him to the bone. She raised the knife, the blade catching the light and casting a sharp, menacing gleam. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing himself for the inevitable, his heart pounding in his chest like a drumbeat of doom. Section 9. The escape. A primal scream tore from his throat. He couldn't just lie there and accept his fate. He had to fight. But how could he fight a creature straight out of his nightmares? He scrambled back, his hand closing around a heavy object, a bookend, his only weapon. He gripped it tightly, his knuckles white with exertion. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Jennifer lunged, her eyes blazing with a terrifying light. He swung the bookend with all his might, connecting with a sickening thud. She roared in pain, staggering back. He didn't hesitate. He scrambled to his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He had to get out, now. He charged towards the bedroom door, throwing his weight against it. The lock held. He was trapped. Section 10. A haunting revelation. Desperation surged through him, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He threw himself against the door again and again, each impact rattling his bones, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, with a groan of tortured wood, the lock gave way, splintering under the relentless assault. He stumbled out into the hallway, not daring to look back, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He could hear her enraged roars behind him, echoing in the darkness, growing fainter as he ran. He didn't stop running until he reached the relative safety of his car, his hands trembling as he fumbled for the keys. He didn't go back to the apartment. He left everything behind, knowing he could never return. The experience left an indelible mark on his soul, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the ordinary, a darkness he had never imagined. The police never found any trace of Jennifer despite their exhaustive search, or whatever she had become, a transformation that defied all logic and reason. Mark was left with the horrifying truth, a truth that haunted his dreams. Some doors are best left unopened, some mysteries best left unsolved, and some dates best left unaccepted, for they lead to revelations that can never be forgotten.